Hello there, and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Wednesday, April the 23rd, 2025. Administrative Professionals Day, previously known as Secretary's Day, established in 1952 by the National Secretaries Association. If you are an admin professional, today is your day, and hopefully the boss will do something nice for you. If you are the boss, do the right thing and do something nice for your administrative peeps. And I have to mention this because it's very important and there is some confusion on the day. The Jewish community is observing Holocaust Remembrance Day today. It is different than International Holocaust Remembrance Day in January, which specifically marks the liberation of Auschwitz. It's a day to remember all forms of Nazi persecution. Today is commemorated by the Jewish community specifically. And thousands of Christians from around the world are lined up at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome now, as the body of Pope Francis is now lying in state until his funeral will be held there on Saturday morning, which is expected to be attended by tens of thousands and many world leaders, including President Trump, according to the White House. Let's start off with some comments from President Trump.
Well, thank you very much. And today we're very thrilled to swear in the new chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Paul Atkins. He's a fantastic man and with great experience, but he's above all, he's very smart. Congratulations to Paul, his wife, Sarah, and his entire family who are with us today. Thank you very much and congratulations. Thank you. Great job. That's great, Sarah. We're also grateful to be joined by our Secretary of the Treasury, who's doing it's the easiest job. I think it's probably the easiest job right now in government, would you say? Companies are coming out of the countries, are coming from all over They want to just sign. We're doing okay. But you're doing really well. Thank you very much. Scott's going to be doing the swearing in. No one in America is more highly qualified to lead the SEC in this exciting time than Paul. He's devoted his entire life to the cause of free, clear, pro-growth and pro-innovation securities markets. After graduating very, very high in his class, I will tell you, Vanderbilt University School of Law, Paul began a distinguished career practicing securities law in New York City before joining the staff of the SEC in the 1990s.
After the swearing in of the new SEC commissioner at the White House Tuesday, the ceremony was, of course, followed up with questions from White House press.
Mr. President, on China, your press secretary has suggested that some progress is being made. Are negotiations actively underway? And do you agree with Secretary Bessent, who has suggested that the current standoff with China is not sustainable?
We're doing fine with China. We're doing fine with I think almost every country. Everybody wants to have involvement with the United States. As you know, we were losing $5 billion a day during the Biden administration, during that last year, was a horror show, what they were doing on trade. $5 billion a day. And now we have it down to a very low number because we're getting 25% from the automobile industry, from autos. We're getting 25% for steel, 25% for aluminum, and we're getting the baseline of 10%. And think of it, we're losing almost $2 trillion on trade. And those days are gone. We're not going to do that again. We're not going to let that happen. We're being ripped off by almost, I don't say every, but very close to every country, everywhere in the world, just being ripped off left and right. You had no leadership. You had people that didn't know what they were doing. And we're going to turn the country around. You know, we have a very nice phrase, make America great again. That's what we're going to do. And it's going to start with trade. We're doing really well. I see the stock market was up nicely, but this is a transition period, and it's going to be a little while. But we are doing well with every country. Ultimately, we have something they want, and you have to view it that way. We have something they want, and they want very badly. And you know, it's going to be, they're coming in, they're taking treasure, they're taking jobs when they do that, and they have to pay. And they don't have to pay if they come in and create their own jobs. You know, if they do their product here, if they build their product or make their product in the United States, we have absolutely no tariffs, and we welcome people. But we're taking in a lot of money from tariffs, and our country is getting stronger all the time because the other was not sustainable.
With China.
Are you going to play hardball with them? Are you going to mention COVID?
Well, I'm not going to say. No, I'm not going to mention COVID. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to play hardball with China. I'm going to play hardball with you, President Xi. No. We're going to be very nice. They're going to be very nice. And we'll see what happens. But ultimately, they have to make a deal because otherwise they're not going to be able to deal in the United States. And we want them involved. But they have to, and other countries have to make a deal. And if they don't make a deal, we'll set the deal. Because we're the ones that set the deal. Scott and Howard and myself and others, we're going to be setting the deal. And it'll be a fair deal for everybody. And it'll be, I think it's a process that's going to go pretty quickly. We've spoken to many, many countries. And we're getting their views on things. You know, there are a lot of things. They have VAT taxes. They have everything you can have. Don't forget, as an example, the European Union was set up to take advantage of the United States. That's why it was set. And they've done that, but they're not doing that anymore. Yeah.
Today, Treasury Secretary Bessent suggested that with the tariff rates as high as they are now, it's effectively an embargo of trade between the United States and China. Do you see it that way?
That's true. 145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It's not going to be that high. It got up to there. We were talking about fentanyl, where, you know, various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high.
And what level do you think it'll come down to if you have it?
It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero. It used to be zero. We were just destroyed. China was taking us for a ride, and just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're going to be very good to China, have a great relationship with President Xi. But they would make billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, and they would build their military out of the United States and what they made. So that won't happen. But they're going to do very well. And I think they're going to be happy. And I think we're going to live together very happily and ideally work together. So I think it's going to work out very well. But no, it's at 145%. There will not be anywhere near that number.
Those comments from the president after Treasury Secretary Bessent said that the China tariffs were unsustainable, and this comment in reference to Fed Chair Jerome Powell.
No, I have no intention of firing him.
All helped fuel a rally on Wall Street, with all three indices gaining back more than 2.5%, and the markets opened up another 2% higher across the board this morning. I'll tell you about Tesla earnings a little bit later, but the stock is surging today after Elon Musk said he will begin to decrease his role in Doge next month, with the takeaway being he'll spend more time focusing on his businesses. There was also a White House press briefing, and as I anticipated on yesterday's Newsmax Daily,
I have two questions, one on the Pentagon and another on the economy. You said on Fox News that the entire Pentagon is working against Secretary Hegseth, but the people who were fired were Hegseth's own guys. So how do you square that, and what do you say to concerns that that's bad management?
They were Pentagon employees who leaked against their boss to news agencies in this room, and it's been clear since day one from this administration that we are not going to tolerate individuals who leak to the mainstream media, particularly when it comes to sensitive information. And the Secretary of Defense is doing a tremendous job, and he is bringing monumental change to the Pentagon. And there's a lot of people in this city who reject monumental change, and I think, frankly, that's why we've seen a smear campaign against the Secretary of Defense since the moment that President Trump announced his nomination before the United States Senate. Let me reiterate, the president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth and the change that he is bringing to the Pentagon, and the results that he's achieved thus far speak for themselves.
Then there was this.
We want to welcome all viewpoints into this room. We welcome unbiased journalists who really care about the truth and the facts and the accuracy. And you rightfully pointed out the Maryland man story, which I, from this podium, when The Atlantic published it on that very first day, I came to this podium and said, this is wrong. The press in this room have this story wrong. And we have seen more and more evidence come to the table that we have had all along. We were always right. The president was always on the right side of this issue to deport this illegal criminal from our community. And it is despicable to see the media continue to refer to this individual as someone who is just a peaceful man living his life in Maryland. This was and always has been an illegal criminal, an MS-13 gang member, and a designated foreign terrorist. And the administration maintains our position to deport these individuals from our communities.
Press Sec Karoline Leavitt in the White House press briefing. And for more, we go to Wake Up America, who spoke with former acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf about the Democrats in El Salvador that are hoping to bring the illegal alien deported from Maryland back to the United States. This starts off with Mark Lotter pointing out the fact that Senator Chris Van Hollen, who went to El Salvador and met with Kilmer Abrego Garcia, didn't even ask if he was a member of MS-13 or any gang, as Rob Schmidt pointed out yesterday.
Chad, it doesn't take a genius if you're sitting across from an alleged gang member to ask, are you a gang member? Can I see your hands? I mean, it's not rocket science.
No, you're right, Mark. It's not rocket science. But the fact that the senator was down there at all, I think, just shows you what the left of the Democratic Party now stands for. I mean, they want to return convicted individuals, MS-13 gang members, individuals that are part of a foreign terrorist organization back to the United States. And I hear Senator Van Hollen say we need to bring him home. The United States is not his home. He is not a legal permanent resident. He is not a U.S. citizen, and he has no legal right to be here in the United States. He has a final order of removal. And I don't think that that half of the Democratic Party really understands what's going on here.
Yeah, you make such a good point. And over the weekend, the White House posted a photo correcting the New York Times article, which calls Garcia a wrongly deported Maryland man. As you mentioned, he is living in Maryland illegally. He is an El Salvador man. But as we know, legacy media continuing to push this narrative. What do you make of this?
Well, it's incredible. Look, again, if for some reason he was brought back to the United States, here's what would happen. As soon as he would land, he would be arrested again. He would be put in detention, and he would be removed to another safe third country. There is no scenario in which this individual comes back to live here in the United States because he has no legal right to be here. We've had numerous judges tell him he has no legal right to be here, but yet he remains here illegally. So the fact that we have senators and members of Congress going down to El Salvador advocating for this individual who has no legal right to be here in the United States is astonishing. And again, I think it tells you where their priorities are. They don't want to advocate for the victims of illegal alien crimes like Rachel Morin and others, but they're happy to advocate for these terrorists.
Yeah, Chad, it's not just El Salvador and in Maryland where these Democrats are fighting for illegal migrants, putting their needs over Americans. In Arizona on Friday, Governor Katie Hobbs vetoed a bill which would require local and state officials to work with ICE in deportations. And this bill was one of the things that people in Arizona voted to make their state safer. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that's right. I think if you just go beyond Arizona, the overwhelming majority of Americans want their community safe. They want illegal aliens removed from their communities, whether they're criminals or whether they're not. They want them removed from their communities. So, again, I think that the Democrats who are doing this, Governor Hobbs and others, are out of step, not only with the American people, but obviously parts of their party as well. When a state like Arizona, which is a purplish state, will vote for these types of measures.
Yeah.
They want them enforced, and they want their chief executive, in this case the governor, to do something about it. And every time, and we know this is her history of not doing this, of not coming down and protecting the people of Arizona.
Former acting secretary for the Department of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf. There was more immigration news from the Supreme Court as well, which issued a 5-4 ruling that illegal immigrants granted voluntary departure must be given extra time to leave the country if their 60-day deadline falls on a weekend or a federal holiday. Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote the majority opinion, siding with the court's 3 liberal justices as well as Chief Justice John Roberts. The court's 4 other conservative justices, Alito, Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, dissented. Justice Coney Barrett also appeared to be siding with the liberal justices on arguments in a case concerning the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, that Republicans wanted to get rid of. A whole different thing, but I wanted to throw that in there for you. Mark Lotter also spoke with Judge Napolitano on Wake Up America about the recent SCOTUS rulings on immigration.
A majority of justices blocked the Trump administration from deporting a group of illegal migrants in Texas using the 200-year-old Wartime Act. Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito were the only 2 who dissented. Let's break all this down. What does it mean with our good friend, judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano? First they said you can do it, now they said they can't.
So this is a very unusual case. The migrants are in Texas at a holding facility not far from the airport. Their lawyers file complaints with a federal district court judge who has jurisdiction over the holding facility and the airport. The judge turns them down. Okay, he finds nothing wrong, and it's time for these guys to go. They then do a very unusual thing. They file an appeal to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans, the right thing to do. They also file an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court, unheard of. Both appeals pending Saturday afternoon. Saturday evening, the Supreme Court rules 7-2. Do not send them to Venezuela or El Salvador until we can examine the case. In the meantime, the Federal Appeals Court rules send them. There's no impediment. There's no law holding them back. Obviously, the Supreme Court decision trumps, no pun intended, trumps the appellate court decision. Justice Alito makes a very, very prudent dissent. He says, wait a minute. We have never prevented the government from performing a governmental function without hearing from the government. They didn't even have time to file a reply. These papers came in at 5:30 on a Saturday afternoon. At 11:30 at night, we're ruling on just one side's argument? But that's where we are today.
And they also skipped a step with the Court of Appeals.
Correct. So the Court of Appeals opinion is now moot. This is all in the emergency phase. So when the Supreme Court said do not send them, there's no opinion. There's no reasoning. There's no rationale. There's just the order. We will eventually get to this when we get to it. In the meantime, you can't send them out. So the DOJ is understandably scratching its head. What does the court want us to do? If they don't tell us what we did wrong, how can we possibly comply with the law? So bottom line, all this is on hold. Supreme Court is sending a very direct, even rough message to the administration: dial it back.
So what does this mean, though, when you have Justices Kavanaugh, Coney Barrett, and then Chief Justice Roberts all joining in this emergency, unprecedented kind of ruling where you didn't even wait for the appeals court, you just immediately jumped in and said, whoa, stop it, stop the train?
Two key words that you used, Counselor: emergency and unprecedented. This emergency stuff is dangerous. The court should not be ruling in an emergency capacity. It should really hear arguments from both sides, require briefs. If there's no time for oral argument, I get it. But give the government the opportunity to be heard. When the Supreme Court doesn't give one side the opportunity to be heard, and that side is the government, they are really sending a message: we don't care what you say. What you're trying to do is so profoundly wrong, unconscionable, unconstitutional, we're going to stop you. By the way, you can make your argument now while they're staying in jail, and then in Texas, and then we may decide you might be able to deport them. Add to this, the last ruling that said they can use the Enemy Alien Act said everybody's entitled to a hearing. They didn't give any of these people a hearing. That may very well be what motivated the court.
Newsmax senior judicial analyst at former New Jersey Superior Court Judge Andrew Napolitano. President Trump on Truth Social the other day wrote, "How can Biden let millions of criminals into our country totally unchecked and unvetted with no legal authority to do so? Yet I, in order to make up for the assault to our country, am expected to go through a long legal process separately for each and every criminal alien." End quote. You decide. And continuing with the legal theme, I mentioned this yesterday, and I didn't hear anyone else talk about it, but I think it's a pretty big deal. I told you the wife of former longtime and once highly respected Senator Bob Menendez, who was convicted and sentenced to prison on bribery charges. His wife, Nadine, was also found guilty on many of the same charges earlier this week. Menendez is or was a Democrat, but this isn't about him being a Democrat. This is about people in Congress, a senator finally being held accountable and not getting off with a little slap on the wrist or a fine that they can pay with the ill-gotten gains. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison. That is a long time. In June, his wife may get a similar sentence. For all the people that are always complaining about payoffs, bribery, and members of Congress getting rich, and how do they get rich, this is a big deal. A member of the Senate, a once highly respected senator, going to prison for 11 years, and his wife could get, as I mentioned, a similar sentence. And this is a big deal, too, especially if you have a student loan and you're not paying the loan. The White House announced it's moving forward with plans to begin collections on federal student loans. The Department of Education says 5 million people have defaulted on student loans since they were paused by President Trump during the pandemic and then continued on through the Biden administration. Now, Uncle Sam wants his money. All right, totally shifting gears. Let's wrap it up with the great Greg Kelly.
I can't believe I missed this. I have looked at this assassination attempt on President Trump, I think, like 1,000 times. I read all the reports. I'm obsessed with this case. What the hell happened? And they almost killed President Trump. They killed that other guy, Corey Comparatore, injured 2 other people. And it was just that one individual, that one guy, Crooks, by himself. I don't think too many people are buying that. That is the official storyline. And they were watching him for 90 minutes prior to the assassination attempt. 90 minutes. The cops, the Secret Service, they knew about this guy. Well, folks, I just saw something that kind of blew my mind on this whole thing. And it was staring me in the face the entire time. Now, maybe you saw it. I did not. I'd like you to take a quick look over here, if you would. Here's President Trump all right, about to get into the vehicle. He's right there, about to get in. And then there's this guy. He's about to do something very, very strange. And I just noticed it, basically yesterday. So let's take a look, everybody.
About a month ago or so, you said they were going to brief you on what happened, what they know, the investigation. Has that happened? Is there anything you can share with us? And maybe there should be a commission. Maybe there should be something else.
So it has happened, and they don't seem to think there was anything other than abnormal people. And I'll assume that's true.
He seems to be open to other theories as to what happened, right? Why does he point that weapon right at President Trump? That's kind of crazy. That is a big thing. And he seems to be, if you watch it one more time, in radio contact with somebody just before he makes the decision to lower his weapon. And is he aiming? Kind of looks that way to me. Now, it's momentary, but why would he do it? I don't know if he's military. I don't know if he's National Guard, Secret Service, Homeland Security, or what. But if we had a full-fledged commission into this, we'd know who that was. You know, people are still studying the Zapruder Commission and the Zapruder film 60, 70 years later. Why aren't we studying this? Let me know if you've seen that. Let me know if you think that's unusual. I think it's pretty damn weird. I'd like to know why he was pointing. And who knows? Who knows? Everything's on the table regarding that case and the West Palm Beach case.
Greg Kelly reports 9 p.m. Eastern. A lot of that clip was visual, and you can't see it, obviously. But there's a guy, a really big guy, by the way. As Greg said, you can't tell what agency he's from because he's in full camo. Helmet, goggles, everything, with a huge rifle and a scope. He's like 2 to 3 feet away maybe from the vehicle that they're putting Trump into, and he turns and points the rifle into the vehicle, essentially right at Donald Trump. It is weird. It's very weird. Greg posted it on his X account, and I reposted it on mine this morning at @radio_Marino, if you're not already following me or following Greg. FBI Director Patel, Deputy FBI Director Bongino, both promised a deep investigation into the assassination attempts of Donald Trump. I'm going to be optimistic and assume those are happening behind closed doors, and we'll eventually see a big news conference or something. What happened? As I mentioned at the open, the stock market is rallying again today. Tesla earnings were below expectations on a per-share basis and on a revenue basis as well. Although I mentioned yesterday analysts were already expecting a dip in earnings anyway, it was just a much bigger dip than what they expected. But shares are trading higher anyway after Elon Musk said he is going to cut back on working at Doge. On the crypto front, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are sharply higher as well. At the time of my recording, Bitcoin is up more than 2,300 at 93,700 or so. Quick mention from the sports page. Game 1 of the NHL Eastern Conference playoffs featuring the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers versus the former Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. Wasn't that much of a game last night as things quickly went sideways for the Bolts, losing, that's Tampa, losing 6-2 on home ice. Game 2 is tomorrow night in Tampa. If you're not a hockey fan, all you need to know is that the last 5 Stanley Cup finals featured one of the 2 teams from Florida, with Tampa winning twice and the Panthers winning one year, losing the next year. Carolina beat New Jersey. In the West, Minnesota beat Vegas. In Canada, for all the Canadian listeners, the Leafs beat the Senators to take a 2-game lead. All right, 5 o'clock today, Eastern, President Trump scheduled to sign more executive orders at the White House. And as we know, there will be a news conference, impromptu news conference after that. Now, more than 3 months in office, he's still signing executive orders. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for checking out the Newsmax Daily. Please subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. If you haven't already subscribed, share it with friends and family. Have a fantastic Wednesday, what's left of your day, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.